There is a quiet movement happening just beneath the surface right now. If you have been carrying a strange feeling in your heart over the last few days, you should know that your intuition is completely correct. It is not your imagination playing tricks on you. A final heavy choice is slowly taking shape deep inside their mind. It is a decision that they have tried to avoid for a very long time, but they can no longer escape it. Somehow, your presence is woven directly into the center of this choice. On the outside, they might appear perfectly calm, distant, or completely detached from everything that happened between you. They may look like they have moved on, and that they are entirely unaffected by the space between you. But the truth they once tried so hard to run away from has grown far too heavy for them to ignore anymore. This situation is no longer just about them missing you in a superficial way. It goes much deeper than standard longing or simple nostalgia. This is about what your unique connection awakened inside their soul and what it forced them to look at within themselves. Your presence brought things to light that they had spent years trying to hide. If you are sensing this final shift happening in the atmosphere right now, you are tapping into a very real emotional reality. They are standing at a massive crossroads in their life, and no matter which path they look down, every single road somehow circles right back to your door. They are discovering that they cannot outrun a connection that was meant to change them. For a very long time, they did everything in their power to distract themselves. They threw all of their energy into their daily routine, into the noise of their career, into their social circles, and into their own stubborn pride. They chose to build a wall of emotional distance, honestly believing that if they stayed silent for long enough, their feelings for you would eventually wither away and disappear. They thought that time and absence would do the work of erasing the bond. But some connections are simply resilient against time. Instead of fading, the feelings grew stronger in the quiet spaces. The more they tried to suppress what they felt, the more their inner world treated your connection as something deeply meaningful, heavy, and completely unresolved. Now, they are forced to look backward. They are loudly questioning the false narrative they told themselves for so many months just to survive the separation. There is a deep inner change taking place inside their heart, and it is creating a massive internal conflict. One side of them feels pulled toward you with an absolute, unavoidable force that defies logic. It is a magnetic attraction that they cannot reason away. Yet, at the very same time, the other side of them is resisting with everything it has left. They are fighting it because admitting this truth requires an overwhelming amount of raw honesty. It requires them to completely lay down the old emotional weapons and defenses that once kept them feeling safe and protected from the world. They are finally sitting alone with the absolute truth of their feelings. They are wondering why your memory continues to return to them in their most quiet, unguarded moments. They are realizing, with a sense of quiet panic, that no one else has ever been able to replace the space you held. This is the heavy, uncomfortable space that always exists just before clarity finally arrives. It is the moment where the human mind can only resist the truth for so long before the mental mask breaks apart completely. If they eventually decide to return to your life, it will be because they have finally recognized a profound truth. They will realize that a connection like the one you share does not show up twice in a single lifetime. It is a rare occurrence that cannot be replicated with anyone else. And if they ultimately choose to walk away forever, it will never mean that you were lacking in any capacity. It will never mean that you were not enough, or that you should have done something differently. It will simply mean that they were not ready for the sheer level of honesty and intense inner transformation that loving you actually required from them. Your energy was a mirror that showed them their own wounds, and they simply did not have the strength to heal them. That is exactly why your only role in this moment is to step back entirely. You must not chase after them, you must not try to force any outcomes, and you must not attempt to control what happens next in this situation. You must allow the truth to unfold completely on its own terms and in its own time. You must let time reveal what words could not express clearly in the past. What is happening inside of them right now carries a massive amount of weight and emotional depth. This is not a temporary whim or a passing doubt that will simply vanish by tomorrow morning. It is a total, exhaustive internal struggle that continues to grow larger with every single day that passes by. On one side of their internal battleground, there is a powerful emotional pull toward you. It is filled with vivid memories, overwhelming warmth, a deep sense of longing, and a rare feeling of true belonging that they have never found anywhere else. But on the exact opposite side of their mind, there is an old, protective voice. This voice was shaped by their past trauma, by old childhood pain, by previous disappointments, and by a terrifying fear of being rejected or hurt again. That defensive voice is constantly screaming at them to stay guarded. It tells them to maintain their distance, to keep the walls up, and to stay safe inside their isolation, no matter what the cost may be. These two powerful opposing forces are violently colliding within their subconscious mind. The emotional pressure is becoming harder and harder for them to ignore as the days continue to march on. They may try their best to hide within the safety of their everyday life and their normal, predictable routines. They might keep themselves completely occupied with countless tasks, hobbies, and work projects all at once. They might act on the outside as though none of this matters to them at all anymore. But the more they try to bury these emotions deep down into the dark corners of their mind, the more those very emotions rise right back up to the surface with a vengeance. The real struggle was never actually outside of them. It was never about the external circumstances, the timing, or the words spoken between you. The battle has always been entirely within their own heart and mind. That is precisely why the very next step they take carries so much weight for the ultimate trajectory of their future. You became a massive turning point in their life without either of you fully realizing what was happening when you first met. Even if neither of you understood the spiritual weight of your connection in the beginning, something about your essence completely challenged the high walls they built to survive their past. Your love touched the hidden version of them that existed beneath the control, beneath the social appearances, and beneath all the careful, calculated ways they learned to protect their heart over the course of their life. Now, they are standing face to face with a difficult choice that cannot be avoided for much longer. They can choose to remain trapped within the comfortable limits of who they have always been, or they can choose to step forward into an entirely unfamiliar, evolved version of themselves. That new version of them requires immense courage, vulnerability, softness, and an emotional risk that feels completely terrifying to them. This constant inner warfare is exhausting them from the inside out. It manifests in the outer world as the exact inconsistency you have been feeling from them lately. It explains the frustrating push and pull dynamic, the sudden shifts between emotional closeness and cold distance, and the confusing moments when they seem completely ready to move forward with you, followed immediately by periods where they suddenly withdraw into complete silence without any warning. This behavior is not always a conscious game or an attempt at manipulation on their part. Most of the time, it is simply what naturally happens when a person deeply desires a connection but is absolutely terrified of the personal transformation that comes along with it. As this emotional pressure increases inside their chest, it is beginning to slowly burn away all of the old illusions they used to hold on to. They can no longer successfully convince themselves that you were just a brief, insignificant moment or a passing stranger in their life story. They are being pushed by forces larger than themselves to see you with far greater clarity than they ever did before. And what is even more important is that they are being pushed to see themselves in a completely new light. Old memories of you are returning to their mind with a fresh, startling strength. Shared emotions that they thought were long dead are resurfacing with an intensity that far surpasses how they felt during your time together. Every instance of silence between you carries so much more meaning now. Every single day of your absence feels heavier and heavier on their heart. This profound discomfort they are experiencing is completely necessary for their growth. True, life-altering decisions are never formed through avoidance, distraction, or running away into the dark. They are only formed when the confusion finally begins to clear away and the human heart is no longer willing to remain hidden beneath the suffocating weight of fear and doubt. That internal clearing is actively happening right now, even if everything appears completely still and quiet on the surface of their life. There always comes a specific moment when uncertainty becomes too heavy for a person to carry any longer, and they are reaching that exact breaking point steadily. This change is not happening because anything in their outer environment has altered dramatically. It is happening because the human mind simply cannot remain divided forever in this painful way. For far too long, they tried to manage their overwhelming feelings by minimizing them completely. They constantly told themselves that the connection was not actually that important after all. They convinced themselves that they could easily handle the separation, that the feelings would pass quickly like a common cold, and that the situation did not require them to take any real, vulnerable action. But something much deeper within their soul knows that those excuses are no longer true at this stage of their journey. That sudden wave of awareness is what is bringing everything to the surface right now with unstoppable force. Emotions that run this deep do not stay still, nor do they disappear just because they are ignored. They expand in the silence and they continue to evolve even during prolonged absence. They wait patiently in the shadows until the person can no longer deny what they truly feel inside their heart. Now, those suppressed emotions are returning in massive waves late at night when the rest of the world is asleep, or during the quiet pauses of the day when they least expect it. They are finding themselves trapped in memories they never expected to revisit so intensely, caught in the strange, heavy stillness that always follows a long, busy day. They are beginning to notice, with an overwhelming sense of clarity, how naturally their thoughts drift right back to you, hour after hour. They are realizing how your presence remains like a soft, constant hum in the very background of their daily existence. They are seeing how all of their clever distractions completely fail to erase the aching feeling that something incredibly meaningful is missing from their world. Your willingness to step back and grant them space has played a powerfully quiet role in this awakening process. By stepping back and refusing to chase them, you left them entirely alone with the echo of their own thoughts. That profound silence quickly became a mirror, forcing them to look directly at the missing comfort, the missing spark, and the absolute emotional safety that your presence used to provide them so freely. When they finally felt the true, devastating shape of what was actually gone from their life, they completely stopped questioning whether you mattered. Instead, they began naturally comparing your rare, beautiful depth to the shallow emptiness of everything and everyone else around them. Inside of them, fear and desire have now collided with a full, intense force that cannot be pacified. On one side is a warm, instinctive pull toward your energy. On the other side is a loud, defensive fear of completely losing control and exposing their old, unhealed wounds to the light. Yet for the very first time since this journey began, their genuine desire is starting to sound much louder than their defenses. This is causing an intense inner storm of push and pull that is reflecting in their behavior. They remain caught in this heavy hesitation, not because they do not care about you, but because they are enduring a quiet, exhausting battle that is pushing them closer and closer toward a massive breaking point. This situation has entirely ceased to be just about a relationship between two people. It has officially become a defining moment of their personal identity, an ultimatum from the universe forcing them to choose exactly who they want to become for the rest of their life. While they may seem more unsettled or incredibly distant on the outside right now, you must not misunderstand this sudden cold behavior as the absolute end of your story. They are finally realizing that staying trapped in the draining middle ground loop of being neither fully present nor completely gone has cost them their entire sense of inner peace. They are exhausted from living in the gray area of this connection. They are finally being forced by their own conscience to take real adult responsibility for what they feel inside. They are realizing they must trade the predictable safety of their old, stagnant life for a connection that loudly demands they grow into a better version of themselves. If you can feel them being pulled back to you even in this absolute silence, you are tuning into a very real energetic shift. The hesitation that once felt like a form of protection to them has officially become a suffocating prison. The heavy walls they relied on for so long to keep you out are cracking under the immense weight of what they can no longer deny to themselves. In their quiet hours, they are vividly remembering every single time they stayed silent when they desperately wanted to speak to you. They are looking back at the specific moments where their stubborn pride stood exactly where honesty should have been. The wide gap between their true feelings and their outward actions is closing completely naturally now. This internal shift is making real lasting change not just possible, but absolutely necessary for their survival. When a person is left entirely alone with their own thoughts for a long enough time, the truth always begins to rise far above the chaotic noise of daily life. That is precisely what is happening right now in the deepest corners of their inner world. This realization is not coming from any outside pressure, family influence, or social expectations. It is coming entirely from an internal shift that grows noticeably stronger with each passing day. They can no longer hide behind fake uncertainty or pretend they do not know what they want as they did before. If this message is describing exactly what you sense they are going through, it is because the connection has become too present in their quietest moments. It continues to appear in their mind when everything slows down around them at the end of the day. It returns to haunt them when they try their hardest to focus elsewhere in life, on work or other people. This repeated, persistent return of your image is doing something incredibly important for their awareness. It is fundamentally changing how they view the entire story of your connection over time. What once looked to them like random, fleeting moments now feels like a highly meaningful pattern. What once felt confusing or poorly timed now feels full of divine purpose and emotional depth. They are beginning to understand that they were not simply missing a person in their life. They were deeply missing the rare version of themselves that came alive whenever they were around you. They missed the person who was more open, more honest, and more emotionally connected than usual. The deep pain of living far away from that authentic version of themselves has finally become too strong for them to ignore any longer. This is a significant, undeniable turning point in their personal journey. So you must understand this clearly and without any doubt. When someone starts deeply missing who they became when they were with you, the question is no longer whether the connection mattered at all. The question shifts entirely and becomes whether they are actually willing to return to the truth it revealed within them. As this intense awareness deepens further, the outer world begins to lose its power to distract them completely. They can stay as busy as they want with many activities, they can surround themselves with crowds of people, or they can throw themselves entirely into work, goals, future plans, and daily noise. But beneath all of that frantic activity, there is still one quiet, powerful current leading them straight back to the exact same place. It leads back to you, to what was felt between you, and to what remains completely unfinished in reality. This is the exact stage where the protective ego begins to lose its stronghold gradually. The ego always wants distance and total control at any cost, just to feel safe from rejection. But the deeper, spiritual part of them is beginning to understand that complete disconnection carries its own unbearable kind of pain and emptiness. Sometimes that specific pain becomes much heavier than the fear of closeness and vulnerability. So now, in the quiet spaces of their mind, they are weighing two possible futures very carefully. They are looking at the safe, predictable life they are familiar with, along with its heavy emotional emptiness. On the other hand, they see the unknown path that carries massive emotional risk, but also holds the only chance of something real and deeply meaningful. For the first time in their life, the actual possibility of love is starting to feel far more valuable than the protection they once sought so desperately. That is exactly where true courage begins to grow inside a person. Courage does not appear when fear disappears entirely. It grows when the truth finally becomes more important than the fear itself. With that heavy awareness comes a quiet, grounded stillness that settles their restless, anxious energy. The pressure is still very much there inside them, but it feels entirely different now. It feels more steady, more focused, and far more honest than it did in earlier times. They are no longer violently resisting every single feeling that arises within their chest. They are starting to relax and let those feelings speak to them clearly. They are beginning to fully accept that what they feel for you is real and true. That simple acceptance brings a quiet, unfamiliar sense of peace to their chaotic heart. This peace does not exist because everything has been resolved completely between you, but because the inner conflict is slowly turning into clear direction. They are standing right at the edge of an old version of their life, looking toward a brand new possibility that feels entirely different. The only bridge left between those two worlds is a single, honest choice they must make on their own. This is their moment of absolute transparency and deep self-reflection. The silence that once protected them from talking to you is now acting as a mirror, reflecting them back to themselves honestly. It is showing them exactly where their pride blocked love, where their fear blocked truth, and where their constant avoidance created a distance that never needed to exist in the first place. They are constantly revisiting old conversations, past memories, simple glances, and sudden pauses from the past. But they are doing so with a lot more maturity now. They have more awareness and more emotional depth than they ever possessed before. They can look back and see exactly where fear made all the decisions in the past. They can also see the immense, irreplaceable value of what was trying to grow between you naturally. This internal process is not only about regret or looking backwards sadly, it is about completely rearranging what truly matters in their life. The superficial things they once placed far above your connection, such as their public image, total control, safety, and emotional self-protection, are starting to feel empty compared to the depth of something genuine and real. Something else is shifting as well deep in their heart. Empathy is growing within them steadily. They are beginning to genuinely feel what their cold distance must have felt like from your side of the connection. They are starting to understand the heavy emotional weight you carried alone while they stood back in confusion and fear. That understanding softens a person from the inside out. It humbles them gently and makes it much harder for them to hide behind emotional coldness anymore. Once real responsibility enters the picture, everything changes in meaningful ways. They are no longer only reacting to fear alone. They are beginning to become the conscious author of what they do next with greater awareness. When someone reaches that mature stage, everything becomes more serious in a deep way. It is not dramatic or loud, but deeply serious and thoughtful. They understand that whatever happens next will reveal something truthful about the kind of person they are choosing to be. The final layers of heavy hesitation are beginning to dissolve slowly. The old defensive thoughts of what they should do or could do are losing their grip on them. In their place, something much stronger is forming inside their spirit.